Hello everyone, welcome to the third lecture of the web development course at UL. In the previous two lectures, I introduced the general concept of web development and the contents of the course syllabus and what we are going to learn throughout the course in general. This was explained to you as part of the contents of chapter 1 in the textbook that we are going to follow during this course. In this lecture, we are going to begin with the contents of the web development course after the introduction. We are going to start in this lecture with chapter 2 in the textbook. The title of this chapter is Introduction to HTML5. So in this chapter, we are going to understand the main components of HTML. We are going to understand the concept of an HTML element, what elements could exist in a certain HTML web page, what are the main elements of HTML, such as the head and the body, the text element, the image element, the href element, the links, the table element, the form element, the list element, and so on. We're going to talk about these elements in details, and we will understand at the end of this chapter the main elements and objects that could be inserted into an HTML document and used in HTML in general. So let's start with an introduction about HTML with its latest version, which is HTML5. This version is currently being used as a standard for HTML web pages. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So H is for hyper, T is for text, M is for markup, and L is for language. Hypertext Markup Language. We are currently, as I said, using version 5 of this language. Now, what do we mean by a markup language? Generally, programming languages, they are all similar in their formats, which means that in most programming languages, general programming languages, as you know, like C++, C#, Java, Python, and other languages, a program is usually composed of one or more classes. Within each class, you have one or more functions, and within each functions, you have programming statements and control structures, such as if else control structures, while loops, and so on. HTML is a scripting language. It's not a programming language like C++ or Java. That's why it is different from these languages. It's a markup language, which means that the program inside this language is completely composed of elements. So inside an HTML program or script, you will find several elements that are put within each other, nested within each other, or after each other. So the whole program is composed of elements only. It's not composed similar to as usual programming languages of control structures and functions and so on. Each HTML element contains tags. We will talk about tags soon. In this way, we can separate and differentiate between markup languages such as HTML and XML and ordinary programming languages such as C++ and Java. So in this lecture, we are going to introduce the basics of HTML at the beginning. What does an HTML basic script contain, what it should contain, and then we are going to cover sophisticated and advanced HTML elements and techniques such as tables, forms, links, and other elements of HTML. Each time you want to create an HTML program, you write the program on a text editor such as Word, Notepad. I use Notepad++, which is an advanced version of Notepad. It allows you to write any text file but save it as a programming language script or program. So I can write any file here, any text, and then the file will be I will save the file in the form of HTML, C++, .java, any other programming language, and it will color the text according to the standard of this programming language. Usually HTML files which represent web pages, so each HTML file will represent a web page. Now these HTML files are usually stored at web servers. Each machine on the internet that will host a website will be called a web server, and within this web server I might have one or more websites. Within each website I will have one or more HTML documents or HTML pages, web pages. The web page is usually written in HTML. The extension of the file will be .html or .htm, as I said in the previous lecture. And the HTML document is usually displayed, shown to the user within browsers. So within a browser you can display the contents of the HTML page. After the browser will process the page, it will extract the objects that exist within the page, and it will render them and show them within the browser. So usually a web server will host and save several HTML documents or pages within its hard disk, and the client will be running browsers and will be connecting to web servers and requesting web pages via HTTP requests, as I explained in the previous lectures. So you are advised here to review very well the previous two lectures in order to understand the main structure of the web communications and how clients connect to web servers and send HTTP requests to them, and they will receive the web pages via HTTP responses or replies from the web servers. So let's start with the first program, HTML program or script that we're going to write, which is as usual in when we learn a new programming language. It is the Hello World program, which will display to the user a Hello World message. Here the message will be welcome to HTML5 and exclamation mark at the end of the line. So we will display this message on a web page in the browser, and we will write the HTML script or program that will produce this message as a separate web page in the browser. The document will be as follows. So this is the first HTML document that we are going to study, our first program. I will be putting all the programs, all the HTML scripts that we are going to take for you on Google Classroom. So you don't need to write any text. You can copy the text or save the script on your computer, and then you can run the script on the browser or edit the script using any note editor, any text editor such as Notepad or Notepad++ that I use, or Word editor, Microsoft Word, any text editor that you want. So this is the first program. This is called main.html. So let's go to the contents of the programs of the first chapter and see here we have this main.html. Now my default browser is the Google Chrome. So when I double click on this script, it will open on Google Chrome, and as you can see, the web page contains only a single line of text, which is welcome to HTML5. Now if you want to view the actual script, we will right click on the script and we will say edit or open via text editor. Open with, for example, Microsoft we can choose the default text editor as Microsoft Word or Notepad or WordPad, any other editor. I use Notepad++. Okay, so this is the file that will produce for us the web page you saw, which is welcome to HTML5 single line of text. Now, any HTML5 document should start with the first line, which is which is the less than sign. Then we have the exclamation mark. Then we have the doc type keyword, and then after that we have a space and the word HTML. Then we have a close the closing of the tag, which is the greater than symbol. As I told you, HTML scripts or programs, they contain of elements. So here we have an element called the HTML element. This is an element. This element will start with something called the open HTML tag, or open tag that contains HTML. Anything that you put within a less than and then a greater than, this is called a tag. Okay, so we have in HTML two types of tags. We have an open tag and a closed tag. Open tag is a less than followed by any text. For example, my name. And then followed by a greater than symbol. This is called an open HTML tag. Okay. If I want to close this tag, or finish this element, each element will contain an open tag and a closed tag. So the open tag will be the name of the element, between less than and greater than. The closed tag will be the same as the open tag. Okay, but it will be like this. Okay, so it will be as you can see, it will be less than followed by a slash followed by the name of the element followed by a greater than. This is called a closed tag. So everything in HTML is elements, and each element contains an open tag which contains the name of the element, and a closed tag which contains the name of the element. The open tag is simply the name of the element between less than and greater than, and the closed tag is the name of the element between less than followed by a slash followed by a greater than at the end of the name of the element. This composes what we call an HTML element. So the whole document is the whole HTML program is written within an HTML element. Okay, the HTML element, which has this open HTML tag and closed HTML tag. Within these two, I will write the whole HTML program. If you see the code of any program that you want, so if we look at any program that you want, for example, let's view the page source. We are now seeing the HTML document of this web page, the code of the HTML code of this web page. So you will see that the whole web page, okay, the whole web page will be within an open HTML tag and a closed HTML tag. This is the open HTML tag, and this is the closed HTML tag. Okay, so a tag could contain something called the attributes. Within the open tag of the element, I can put attributes. We will talk about attributes later. Okay, so first the program, the HTML program, should begin with the standard tag, which is the doc type tag. Now this type of tag, this type of element, which is the doc type element, this is called a void element. A void element is an element that contains only an open tag. It doesn't contain a closed tag. So doc type will be a void element. We will see later that there are some other elements in HTML, such as the image element. The image will be a void element also. It will contain only of an open tag. It doesn't have a closed tag. But generally, most of the elements in HTML, they contain both an open tag and a closed tag. The doc type is the main element in an HTML document, it should exist in every and each HTML document. So each HTML document should contain the doctype element. A doctype element is a standard. It allows the browser to know the version of the HTML that the document is written in. We will see that different versions of HTML used to have different values or different structure of the doctype element. Now, as I said, the program is included within an open and closed HTML tag. So there is an HTML element, main HTML element, that contains the whole document. Now, any HTML document contains mainly of two parts: the head part of the document and the body part of the document. The head part is used to display information about the document and to specify the title of the document, while the body part is used to put inside of it, inside the body part, the objects that will be displayed in the document. So here we have the head and the body. Any HTML document will contain a head and a body. As you can see, when we click on any element, it can be collapsed or expanded. So this shows that this is the whole, everything here is inside the head HTML element, and everything here is inside the body HTML element. Here the head of the document contains two other HTML elements, which are the meta element and the title element. The meta element is a void element. It doesn't have an end tag, just an open tag, start tag. And the title element is an ordinary HTML element. It has an open tag and a close tag. Okay. Now the title displays the title of the web page. When you open this web page, this title will be displayed on top of the web page as the title of the web page. So here, if you look at this web page that we opened, you can see here that the title of the web page is welcome. Okay, this title, this welcome here, it is stated, identified in the title tag in the head of the script of the web page. We can put many elements, many HTML elements inside the head. All of these elements will describe the behavior and the structure, general content of the general behavior of the document. For example, the meta element here, it contains metadata about the web page. Metadata, they are data that describe how the web page will be rendered, how it will be shown. For example, here we are seeing that the character set of the web page will be the UTF-8. The UTF-8 is a certain standard for encoding the characters of the document. When we take about advanced Java, we will be seeing the different types, the different methods of encoding a character. When the web page will be changed into binary data, each character will be changed into 1, 2, or 3 bytes. This depends how we will change each character from its text, digital text, to binary data that will be put within the packet that will be sent on the network. The way of changing the characters into binary data is the encoding method. We have many encoding methods. The most famous is the UTF-8, in which each character will be changed into 8 bits or 1 byte. So here we have inside the head two HTML elements: the meta, which contains an attribute called character set, and the second HTML element, which is the title, which specifies the title of the web page. These are put inside the head. Now everything inside the head is not displayed into the web page. They are just information about the web page and the title of the web page. While everything inside the body element, these objects that you put here inside the body, these are displayed into the web page. So here we have a text: welcome to HTML5 exclamation mark. This text is put within a /p HTML element. The /p is an element that specifies a paragraph. So the P is for paragraph. Everything you put inside open and close /p HTML element identifies a separate paragraph. So for example, if I copy this paragraph and put another paragraph after it, in the second paragraph, for example, I will write, this is a second paragraph Then I will save the document and I will display it again. So as you can see, now I have two paragraphs in the web page. Welcome to HTML5, and this is a second paragraph that I wrote as a separate /p element inside the HTML document. Okay. So to begin with, the doc type is a specification that shows which HTML version is being used in this web page, or which HTML version this web page is written in. We have HTML versions starting from HTML 1.0, then we have 1.1, then we have several versions. The last one before HTML5 was the HTML4, and now we have HTML5. Each one of these HTML versions have its own elements that are different from the other versions. So you might have that some elements, they might exist in HTML5, but these elements didn't exist in HTML4. So if the web browser is written to support only HTML4, then it will not be able to display the web pages that are written in HTML5, because it will not be able to know the new elements that they are inserted into the web pages that are written in HTML5, because the code of the browser is not written to support these elements. It was written to support only HTML4 elements. That's why the doc type is very important, to enable the browser to know which HTML version the web page is written in, and to if the HTML version is written in a version, if the HTML document is written in a version that is not supported by the browser, then the browser will display an error which is HTML version not supported. So you can, if you look at the internet, you will find that different HTML versions so if you look at the internet, you will find that different HTML versions used to have different value of the doc type element at the top of the document. In HTML5, we have, as we have seen in the document, exclamation mark, doc type, and then HTML. This is standard for all HTML5 documents. For HTML4, so this is standard for HTML5 documents. HTML4, we have several ways of writing the doc type element at the beginning of the document. So you can see that there are three distinct starting tags for HTML4 documents depending on the type of the document. This was existed in HTML4. Also, you can see that, for example, HTML 1.0, it had also other types of other ways to write the doc type element at the beginning of the document. Similarly for HTML1. Okay, so if you go at this web page, w3schools.com/tag_doctype.asp, you will find information about the different ways that were used to write the doc type element in different versions of HTML. Another thing in HTML documents is how to write comments. So I forgot to talk about that when I displayed and explained the document. This here, this one, here is a comment, and this one here is also a comment. So you are accustomed to in programming languages such as C++ and Java to put any command between two slashes. So I put two slashes after each other, then I write any command that I want. Another way of writing commands in programming languages is by putting a /star. Then I write anything that I want as the body of the command. Then I finish the command with a */. So this was in C++ or Java. Now in HTML, I write a command using the standard, which is less than, then followed by exclamation mark, then followed by two minuses, minus and minus. Then I write any command that I want. Then I finish the command by a minus minus followed by greater than. So this one specifies a beginning of a command, and this one specifies the end of a command. So you need to write each command between its open and closing specification. Okay, as you can see, these two specifications, this one and this one, will be used at the beginning and the end of any command in HTML, like this one or this one, or at the end of the document. We have all of this here is a command. This command begins with the beginning specification of a command and ends at the end with the end specification of the command. This is how to create commands in HTML. Now here we talk about the head, the body, and the title sections. I already explained that when I talked about the document. I told you what is the concept of the HTML, what's the concept of the head, why do we need the head, and why do we need the body in an HTML document. So each HTML document or program should contain these two tags inside the document. You cannot create any HTML document without a head or without a body element. Also, as I told you before, any element should contain at least a start tag, and it might contain a HTML close tag or end tag if it is an ordinary element. So here, for example, as I said, head is an ordinary HTML element. It contains an open HTML tag, which is the head, and between less than and greater than, and the close tag or the end tag of the head element, which is the less than followed by a slash, followed by the name of the element, followed by a greater than. So any element contains a start tag and a close or end tag. There are some void elements like meta here. We will see the image after a little while. These are called void elements. They contain only start tag, a single tag. This single tag can be a start tag or a close tag or end tag. Now, in some elements, we are able to put attribute to the element. We are able to add an attribute to the element. For example, here, the meta element, which is a void element, it contains a single attribute, which is the character set, char set. An attribute usually contains of three elements, three parts. The first part is the name of the attribute. Then the second part is always the equal sign. So the name of the attribute should be followed by an equal sign. Then after that, you put the value of the attribute between double quotations. So you will have two double quotations that contain within them the value of the attribute. So any attribute will contain the name of the attribute, then followed by an equal sign, then followed by the value of the attribute between two double quotations. Now, what do we mean by attribute? This attribute will specify a certain characteristic of the HTML element. For example, meta here, it is an element that contains all information about that describe how the HTML web page will be rendered and displayed. One of the characteristics is how the characters are going to be encoded into binary data when the HTML page will be transformed into binary. So this is called the encoding standard. Here, the web page will use the encoding standard, which is the UTF-8. We will be seeing examples about attributes and how they are used when we talk about images and some other elements. I talked about the title, which is used to display the title of the web page in the browser when the web page is shown in the browser. Something good to know is that the title is used by search engines to index the web page. So suppose that I go into Google, for example, and then I write a query here. For example, I want to know about HTML5. Okay, and then I click enter. So how does Google display the results for me? It searches in the metadata of the web pages. So one of the things that Google searches in is the title of the web pages. So when Google wants to know a summary about the web page, what is contained in the web page. It searches in the metadata of the web page and in the title of the web page. So any web page that contains inside of it HTML5 in the title, this will be a hit in the result of Google. So Google will search in the titles of web pages to see if they contain one or more words from the search query that was inputted by the user. So the title is used by search engines to search for certain web pages, whether they contain one or more words from the query of the user, so then they will be a hit in the result of the query. I talked about the p element, which is used to display a separate paragraph inside the web page. In order to validate that your code is correct and doesn't contain errors, it will not contain errors that will prevent the correct rendering and displaying of the web page, you need to build or debug and test the code before you can run it into the browser, inside the browser. So HTML doesn't contain a default within the browser. You don't have a default HTML validator and debugger. That's why there are online web pages that they work as HTML validators. So for example, if we go to this website, validator.w3g, validate by upload. If we go to this website, okay, this is called an HTML validator. You choose a certain file, HTML file, and it will validate for you and detect if it contains errors or not. For example, if I choose as you can see, these are HTML documents. If I choose any HTML document, such as, let's say, this main document, let's say open, okay, and then I say check. So it will display the results of the validation for me. The results of the validation was that the checking was completed and the document contained only a single warning. It didn't contain any errors after it validated the document. We have only a single warning. Warning, as you know, is in programming language, is just something to be considered. It's not something to correct. So here it displays that I don't have a language attribute within the HTML. As we saw here in the code of this web page, most web pages, they now contain a language attribute in the beginning of the HTML document and the start HTML, the start tag of the HTML element. There is a language attribute that displays in which language this HTML page is written, because as you know, the HTML page might be written in different languages, in English or French or any other language. So the browser should know which language is used to render this web page. This is a standard. Now there is a default language, which is the English language. If you don't write this attribute, then the browser will render the page in the default language, which is the US English language. But it is a good habit, as it is said here, that you add a language attribute to the start tag of the HTML element at the beginning of the document. So here I don't have any errors in the document. If you try to write an HTML page with errors and try to validate it, it should detect the error for you and display the error on which line and column it is. Now let's move on to certain specific elements in HTML. We will begin with the headings of a web page, how to create different levels of headers in HTML. As you saw in this document, welcome to HTML5, we had only a single paragraph at the beginning, then we added a second paragraph, but we didn't use any headers, we didn't use any titles in this web page. I can create titles in HTML by using the different H tags. So H1 will correspond to header number 1, header 1, which is the most upper header used in any document. Then you have H2, then it is header 2. So in Microsoft Word, if you go and see if you write any text and then put the style of the text equal to header 1, this will be displayed like this one as a highest level header of the document used in the titles usually. Now if you want to use any text at the second level headers, you display you put the style of the header as header 2. In HTML, I use the H1, H2, H3 until H6 tag to display different levels of headers in the web document. For example, you can see this web document here. It contains within the body of the document. So the header here is the head is the same. The head of the document is the same as we saw. Everything is the same here. Now within the body, instead of putting a P/P, which is a paragraph, I am putting 6 different headers inside the body of the document, H1 up to H6. As you can see, each one of these titles, these are different titles. Level 1 heading, this is a title which will be displayed with the header 1 style. This is a title that will be displayed with the header 2 style, and so on until the header 6 style. Each one of them will be displayed as a different level of headers. So the result of this document will be something like this: level 1, level 2, level 3 until level 6 heading. The level 6 heading is very similar to ordinary text, but bold text. Ordinary bold text. Okay, so if we see this document, let's go to headers, heading here. If we open this document with Notepad, this was the image of the document. This is the document. So you can see inside the body I have 6 HTML elements. Each one of the HTML element is a tag for a different header level. H1 tag, or H1 element, H2 element, until the H6 element. The H elements, they contain an open tag and a close tag or end tag. If I run this document in the browser, you will see that each one of these texts will be displayed with a different style according to the H value that this text is put into. So the first one is put into an H1 element, it will be displayed with the style of header 1. The second line 2, is put inside H2 element, which means that it will be displayed with the style header 2, and so on. Now let's talk about hyperlinks, how to create hyperlinks inside documents. A hyperlinks or a reference, it is a certain object, could be text, could be image, could be some other objects. It is a certain object that when you click on the object, then the web browser will send an HTTP request to the server and will return a certain web document or a certain object or a certain mail. It will create a certain mail to that you specify in the hyperlink. Usually web browsers, they underline the hyperlink and they display the hyperlink in a blue text color by default. So anything that you specify as a hyperlink will be displayed as underlined and in blue text color. This is an example of a hyperlink document that contains a reference or a hyperlink. Here we will have a document that will display 4 different hyperlinks. Each one of them will have a different web page that will be directed to when you click on this hyperlink. Now in HTML, whenever you want to create a hyperlink, you must use the HTML element. So there is an HTML element called the A element. This element has an open tag and a close tag. So open /A and close close and then /A. So this is an A element that is used to create hyperlinks in HTML. Any hyperlink that you want to create, whether it is text or image or anything, you must insert it, put it inside an A element. When you put the object inside an A element, automatically the browser will display the object as a hyperlink. The object would be text, as you see here. So we have a text which is Facebook. I have put this text Facebook inside the A element, which means that this Facebook text will be displayed as a hyperlink. This is another hyperlink, also a text Twitter. This Twitter will be shown on the web page as a hyperlink because I have put it inside an A element. Here we have the open tag of the A element, and here we have the close tag of the A element. Now the A element, it has an attribute called the href attribute. It contains inside it the reference or the hyperlink itself, the place where you want to go or the file that you want to get when you click on this element. The hyperlink could be one of 3 things. It could be a URL, which is a web page that you want to get, that you want a browser for you to get for you and display for you. So when you click on this hyperlink, on this text, you are going to, the browser is going to send an HTTP request to the web server, and in the HTTP request, this will be the URL or the object that you will get that will be put inside the HTTP request, and that server will send to the browser, and the browser will display. The second thing that you can put as a hyperlink is any web object. It doesn't have to be a web page. You can put the URL of any web object in general. I talked about web objects and that they have URLs and URIs and URLs. I talked about them in the previous lecture. So if you want to know more information about them, please listen to the previous lecture and make sure you understand the the concept of different web objects and the concepts of URIs and URLs and how they are used and how we can get any web object from a certain web server. So I can put inside the href. So this is an attribute. It's called href. I always use the href attribute inside the A element in order to identify what is the link or hyperlink or the reference that I want to use in this hyperlink. So the value of the hyperlink here is a web page. Here we have www.facebook.com. Here we have twitter.com. I can put, instead of web page, I can put the total path of any web object on a web server, or I can use an email hyperlink. I can use the hyperlink to create a new email, to send an email to a user. So when I click on the hyperlink, I will the browser will open a mail page and will use your default email software to create a new email message and send it to the recipient. Now the email of the recipient that should receive this message is put here. So you use something called mail to. We'll talk about that soon. You use something called mail to and then a column, and then you put the email address of the recipient and you put that here. So in this case, when you click on the hyperlink, you want to send an email to the recipient and not request a web page from the server. So if we execute this page on the browser, it will display first. It will display as a title with style header 1 h1. here are my favorite sites. So this will be the title of the web page. Then I will have a paragraph. Click a name to visit that site. This is the text that will display within the paragraph. Now this text is put inside a strong HTML tag, HTML element, sorry. A strong HTML element contains an open tag and an end tag. The strong HTML element is equivalent to the bold behavior in Microsoft Word or any text editor. If you want the text to be displayed in a bold as a bold text, you put the text within a strong HTML element. So I have here a paragraph put within the open P and close P tags, and then this paragraph, all this paragraph is displayed in bold font because I have put all the paragraph inside open and close tags of the strong element. This will be shown as you see here. This is the title, and then this is the paragraph. It is shown in bold text. Now after that, I have 4 paragraphs. Each one of these paragraphs contains inside it a hyperlink, the A element, which will be displayed, the content of the A element, the body of the A element will be displayed as a hyperlink. So the first hyperlink will be Facebook, the text Facebook, as you can see. The second is Twitter. So we have 4 hyperlinks. The first is Facebook, the second is Twitter, the third is Foursquare, and the fourth is Google. Each one of these will have a text that will create a hyperlink, and the A element will contain the href attribute in which we specify what is the value of the hyperlink that we want to go to. If we run this document, first let's see its content in Notepad. Okay, so this is the content that we have seen on the seen on the slide. We are using here lists. I don't want to lists for now. Let's use them as ordinary. Sorry for that. So we'll be using ordinary E instead of lists. So this should be the same as the web page that the script that we saw. Okay, so we have the title, then the bold font paragraph, then we have 4 paragraphs. Each one contains a hyperlink. Okay, the hyperlink, each hyperlink is shown in as a separate paragraph, and each hyperlink should be put inside an A element. The A element contains an open tag and a close tag, and the open tag of the A element will contain an attribute href, which will contain the reference that you will go to when you click on the hyperlink. Okay, so I have saved this page. Let me display it in the browser. Okay, so I have here 4 hyperlinks. As you can see, when you move the mouse to a hyperlink, the shape of the mouse will change. It will be like a hand, which will indicate to you that this is a hyperlink. Also, if you look at the bottom of the web page here, you can see at this place, you can see that the name of the hyperlink will be displayed. So if I click at any one of these, I will be forwarded to the web page that I wrote in the href value of the hyperlink. So as I said before, I can put one of three things inside the hyperlink. The href, the value could be one of three things, either a web page or a file or an email address. Now, if the web browser sends an HTTP request that contains the URL of the hyperlink in an HTTP request, if it sends this to the web server and the web server couldn't find or couldn't locate the object that you are looking for, either the web page or the file, then it will return an HTTP reply that will contain a 404 code, and the web browser will display this error code inside the resulting web page. We talked about this in the previous lecture. How to hyperlink to an email address? We simply write mail to, and then we write the email address after that, mail to column, and then the email address. In this case, instead of sending or requesting a web page or an object, then you are requesting the browser to create a new email, and it will create a new empty email for you, in which the to element of this email will be the same as the URL that you specify in the href value, and your default mail software or mail browser will be open to create this new email address. So for example, here we have another web page, another script that shows you an example of how to create a hyperlink that contains an email address. So here you can see that we are putting a certain text, which is this text here, within an A element, which means that this text, which is title and associates, comma, inc dot, this text will be displayed as a hyperlink. But here, instead, when we click on this hyperlink, instead of requesting a web page or web object, we are going to create a new email, because we have specified in the body of the href and the value of the href that we want to mail. So when we say mail to, which means that we are requesting here a new email hyperlink, not an web object hyperlink. So we are saying here mail to, then a column, and then we want to specify the URL, which is title@title.com. So we want to send an email to title@title.com. If we execute this web page, okay, so as you can see in the href, I have mail to column and then the email I want to send an email to. If we run it in the browser, okay, you can see that the part that is put inside the A element, so we have here an ordinary P paragraph, written within the P open and close P tags. The part that I want to display as a hyperlink, this specific text, I put it within the A element, which will create the hyperlink to this part of it. The other part, which is to write to, and after this one, they will be displayed as ordinary text and not as a hyperlink. Okay. So if I click on this hyperlink, you can see at the beginning that if you look here, it will display mail to, which means that I'm opening email. If I click on it, then my default web application or web browser or web software that is default for sending emails will open, and the two we will have a new message, new email message, and the two here will be the email that you specify in the web page. So if you look at the email, it's title@title.com. So here the new message is to title@title.com. If your default email software is Outlook, then Outlook will be opened to send, and a new email will be created in Outlook. The final thing I'm going to talk about in this lecture is related to images. How we can create images inside a web page, how to add an image element in the web page. Now the image element is one of the elements that we call a void element. As I said at the beginning of this lecture, a void element is an element that contains a single tag only. It doesn't have an open tag and a close or end tag. Here are general information about images and about their extensions, formats. Now, in order to create an image, you use the IMG HTML element. The IMG HTML element is an element that is used by the browser to display an image in place of the IMG element. The IMG element is a void element. It doesn't have an open tag and a close tag. It has a single tag. This single tag could be an open tag, like as you see here. It is image, and then at the end, after image, you have several attributes, and then at the end, you have the close of the tag. So this is the open of the tag. Then you have the name of the element, which is image. Then at the end, you have the close of the tag. This is the way we write open tags, by less than and greater than, using less than and greater than. Now this tag could be also a close tag. You could put at the end here, you could put at the end a slash before the greater than, or you can omit the slash. It's up to you. In HTML5 it's the same. If you put a slash or you do not put a slash, it will be the same. Anyway, this element is a void element because it contains only a single tag. Inside this tag, I have the name of the element, and then I have three attributes here, or four attributes that specify the information about the image I want to display in the web page. First, the source attribute, SRC is an abbreviation for source. The source attribute identifies the location of the image, where is the image, and the name of the image. So here I have an image called cpp http.png. This is the name of the image. If I don't put a path before the name of the image, this means that the image is located in the same folder with the HTML script or document. So here I have this document. It is called images.html. If I go to this folder, there is a there should be, it seems it's not here, so I don't have actually images. No problem, I can write it anyway. So if you look at the place where this is located, let me search for it if there is any other place that contains this document. HTML. I think it's not hard. Maybe it is this one. Yes, it's called a picture. Sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, so if we look at the this HTML document, which is images, so we have here an image which should be called cpp http.png. Because I haven't specified any path before this image, then this image should exist in the same folder of the HTML document. So I should have an image here called http.png or cpp.http.png. Now if this should be here. Okay, this is the image that the web page should display. Okay, if you want to link or display an image that is not in the same folder of the web page, you need to provide before the name of the image the full path to reach the image. So you start from your default location, your default web location, and then you move from there until you reach the folder in which the image is found. When we put in general in most web application, any web page that uses images, you put the image either in the same folder with the web page, or you create a certain folder in the same folder that contains the web page, and then you put the images inside this folder. So in this case, you will just be putting the name of the folder followed by slash followed by the name of the image. For example, if I have a web page here, if I have this pictures web page that contains several images inside them, inside the web page, and I want to display all these pictures, and I want all these pictures to be put inside a specific folder, then I can create a folder here. I can call it images, for example, images. Okay, and then I move this image inside it, and then instead of putting the name of the image directly, I put images slash and the name of the image. In this case, I will be referring to the image which is inside folder images. This is the first attribute, which is the source attribute, which identifies the location and the name of the image that should be displayed in the web page. After that, we have the width and the height attributes. Attribute called width, attribute called height. These specify the size of the image that should be displayed inside the web page. The image should be displayed in this size. Now 92 and 120 they are in pixels. So 92 here means 92 pixels and 120 means 120 pixels. Okay. So the image will be displayed with this size. The actual image could be with a different size, but you can render the image and resize the image in the web page to any size that you want. The final attribute is the alt attribute. The alt attribute displays the alternative text that, or identifies the alternative text that should be displayed in place of the image if the image is not found. So in some cases, the image could be moved by mistake, or the image could be moved and you forgot to rename the change the source attribute. So when the browser tries to look for the image, the browser will not be able to find the image because it has been moved. So in this case, it cannot display the image in this location, in width 92 and height 120. So it will display a box of width 92 and height 120, but inside the box it cannot display the image because the image was not found. Instead of the image, it will display this alternative text. In this example, I have two image elements, which means that I want to show two images in the web page. But you will see that the first image, there is a file called cpp.http.png, but the second image, we don't have this file. So this image doesn't exist in the same folder of the web page. So this So the first image which is cpp.http, it is found, but the second image which is jhtp, you will not find it. So if you look for J, you will not find any photo with the name jhtp. So if when I display this picture in the browser, or this web page in the browser, so when I double click on this HTTP script to display it in the browser, you will see that the first image is displayed correctly, but the second image element, because the image doesn't exist, there is no file called jhtp.png. That's why instead of the image, the browser will display the alternative text, the text that you specify in the alt attribute, which is Java how to program book cover. Okay, in addition to a default symbol, the default small icon that is displayed when the image is not found. Now something that you can try with is to change the value of the width and the height. Let's try to put here, for example, 200 with 450, for example. Okay, and let's see if we execute. Okay, you will see that the browser will render the image with a new size that I put. It will change the size of the image according to the width and the height that I specified. Okay, always when you specify a size that is different from the default size, make sure that the ratio between the width and the height is the same as the ratio of the default image, the original image, in order to display the image correctly and not distort it. So I talked about the different attributes and their meanings in the image HTML element. I talked about the alt attribute. Something nice about the alt attribute, which is the alternative text, is that when the browser is configured for accessibility, which means that if the browser is configured to use accessibility methods, in this case, if the user who is using the browser is blind, then the user will not be able to see the web pages. Instead, it depends on the browser to read the web pages for the user. So the browser will read the text, it will read the content of the web page. Now, when the browser reaches the images, if the browser is configured for accessibility and is reading the content of the web page, when it reaches the images, if nothing is displayed in the alt attribute, it will just say that this is an image or image only. So the user or the blind user who is seeing the page, he will or she will not be able to know the content of the image. If you display something or you put something in the alt attribute, then the browser will read the content, the value of the alt attribute. In this case, the blind person will be able to know what the image is about. So as I said before, the image is an example of void elements. Void element is an element that contains a single tag only, not a start tag and an end tag. Also, as I said, at the end of the tag, the void element, at the end before the greater than, you can put a slash or you can omit it. So it's the same here if you put this slash or omit it. Because some previous versions of HTML, they require that this slash should exist. In HTML, it doesn't matter. HTML5, it doesn't matter. The last example we're going to talk about is how to use images as hyperlinks. As you expect, in this case, instead of putting text inside the A element, I put the whole image element inside the A element to create a hyperlink. This is an example. So here I have a paragraph. In this paragraph, I have 4 hyperlinks because I have 4 A elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 4 hyperlinks. But here the content of the hyperlink inside the body of the A element, I don't have text here as we had before. I have a complete image. So I'm putting a complete image, an image element with its source, width, height, and alt text. I'm putting the complete image element inside an A element. So I'm creating a hyperlink, but the content of the hyperlink is not text, it's an image. When I click on this image, I will be forwarded to the name of the web document that is specified in the href attribute of the A element. I think this is links to. Okay, this is it. So as you can see in the body of the HTML document, I have a paragraph B. Okay, so here in this program, the 5 images will be displayed near to each other, not below each other. Why is that? Because I have put the 5 images, all the 5 hyperlinks, I have put them in a single paragraph. If you want to put each image on a separate line, then you need to put each one in a separate paragraph. So if I put here this B, if I copy it and finish it here, if I finish the B element here like this, so I'm putting the single hyperlink inside a single paragraph. In this case, the second hyperlink will be moved to a new paragraph, to a new line. But in this case, in this document, I'm putting all 5 hyperlinks on a single, only one paragraph. That's why they will be displayed in a single line, all of them. If I run this file in the browser, okay, you will see that there are 5 images. There are 5 images here, which are the buttons, buttons/links. So here you have, as you see, I have a folder called buttons. Inside this folder, I have 5 images. Image called links.jpg, image called list.jpg, and so on. These images, they constitute these 5 images. If you look at this folder in which I have all the HTML programs, there is a folder called buttons, and inside this buttons I have several images. Each one of them has a certain name. I'm using these names, content.jpg for example. I'm using them in these image elements, and each image element I'm putting it inside an A element in order to create a hyperlink of the image. So when I click at any one of these, I will be opening a certain web page. Okay, these web pages, for example, here this one is called list of features. So the list of features, the second one will be lists.html. So if I go to lists.html, here, let's see lists.html. Okay, this. So when you click this one, the second image, this one, you are directing to list.html. Okay, so this is list.html. This is one, and when I click on this one, I'm directed to this web page. Okay, the same is for the other 5 hyperlinks, the other 5 images. When you click on any one of them, you will be directed to the corresponding web page in this folder. Okay, I will put all the contents of all this folder for you on Classroom. Okay, so with that we finished this lecture. We have covered some very important elements in HTML. Next time we will be covering more important elements such as tables, lists, forms, and other advanced elements towards the end of this chapter. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please send an email. See you next time.